Good morning, welcome to Ekate's Crossing. Okay, we're going to continue Journey of the Heart, the part of the conscious love by John Wellwood, and we're going to do chapter 10, and chapter 10 is developing larger vision. Okay, I couldn't resist. I got the Tasty Tarot by Tarot Oracle, and I just couldn't resist using it for this chapter, developing larger vision. So let's have a look and see, what are the cards going to tell us about this chapter? What do we need to reflect on while we're reading? Whoa! That sort of flew out. So what card have we got here? Four of Pentacles. Four of Pentacles sort of says to me that you're trying to build foundations. You're trying to have this sense of trying to create a stability in your being grounded in your earth energy. Pentacles is very earthy, so I think about Four of Pentacles as being something that's being grounded, building foundations, some stability in that sort of earth energy. You want to sort of look at really looking at what are you holding on to. Maybe what you need to let go of. Maybe you need to put something aside for another time. So you're sort of I want to say, I get the sense of like stepping stones in a way, where you're just sort of putting on one layer on top of another to try and get where you need to be. Very much so with this. So let's have a look and see what can you tell us about the Four of Pentacles. So what can you tell us about the Four of Pentacles? Okay. Oh. Okay, tell us about the Four of Pentacles. There it is. Three of Swords. Okay. It's like you need to deal with the heartbreak with the Three of Swords. You need to deal with that sense of, with Three of Swords, I get that sense of dealing with the heartbreak, the sense of the sorrow, maybe a sense of betrayal. It's an interesting card when you look at it like that. Three of Swords. So you get that sense of heartbreak. I think that's really important here to deal with. You get that sense of, here you are building foundations, making sure you're staying grounded, but it's all about dealing with the heartbreak, dealing with the sorrow, being able to sort of move through that process of whatever's going on to build new connections here. Interesting with the Two of Cups. Interesting. Looking at, what are you holding on to? How do you build a new future? How do you build the path that you're looking at? What are you holding on to in regards to the heartbreak? What's stopping you from getting the new connections that you need in your life? Interesting. So take a moment to sort of reflect on that message as we sort of read the Developing Larger Vision, chapter 10. All of love's power and creativity arises out of the play of differences. Yet, when these differences harden into oppositions, they arouse fear and antagonism, which can tear apart the very fabric of a relationship. The most fundamental difference in a relationship is between self and other. Whenever this difference becomes solidified into for and against positions, self is right and other is wrong, the dance of relationship grinds to a halt and turns into a tug of war. When the mind hardens into an oppositional stance, we lose flexibility and fluidity, which are our greatest resources in handling conflict. If we are to use relationship difficulties as opportunities for growth instead of being defeated by them, we must be able to free ourselves from the group of oppositional mind. In the martial arts, developing a fluid awareness that does not freeze into opposition is often a matter of life and death. If the samurai's mind stops for a moment to oppose what is happening, his opponent's lunge towards him, or his opponent's sword as it falls through the air, this may endanger his life. It slows him down and prevents him from making necessary split-second changes and adjustments. For this reason, many samurai warriors in ancient Japan studied Zen meditation as a practice of freeing attention from fixating on any thought, perception, or attitude. Meditation taught the samurai how to develop a more flexible, panoramic awareness. Similarly, to move more fluidly with the shifting challenges of an intimate relationship, we need to develop a wider angle vision that does not become stuck in opposition. This requires stepping out of habitual mindsets, what we already know or believe, so that we can take a fresh look at what is going on. Then two partners can find a higher ground they both can share, a larger panoramic perspective on what is happening between them, beyond their conflicting egocentric points of view. Mirroring. One simple yet effective way to expand our normally narrow field of vision is by regarding whatever is happening in a relationship as a mirror that can reflect something important back to us about ourselves. The basic principle is simple. Two partners are like a pair of multifaceted mirrors, and their interaction picks up and reflects sides of each other that they might not otherwise see as clearly. Moreover, the way we relate to others always reflects the way we relate to parts of ourselves. We could modify the old alchemical model, as above so below, to express this fundamental truth in all human interactions. As without, so within. The dramas we enact in relationships are the dramas we carry inside us. The qualities we seek in a partner are the qualities we also need to find within ourselves. And what we reject in others points to parts of ourselves that we also do not accept. Regarding relationship as a mirror can help expand our awareness of what is happening in our interactions. We can ask of any dynamic that is happening or of any irritation we feel towards our partner. What is this mirroring in me? What is this forcing me to look at in myself? Instead of focusing on what the other person is doing wrong, we can then begin to see where we need to grow. In this way, we can use whatever frustrations or limitations we come up against in a relationship as part of our path. It is easy to focus on what is wrong with our partner or with the relationship. What is usually much harder to see is how we ourselves always help create whatever problem exists, if only through how we perceive and react to what is going on. In fact, every difficulty in a relationship is co-created. It is much harder to change our partner or fix a relationship than it is to work on how we contribute to the difficulty. Surprisingly, when we work on ourselves, the relationship usually starts improving as well. Sorry. This doesn't mean that we should always take everything on ourselves while completely overlooking the ways we would like our partner to change. That would be going to the other extreme. Rather, the purpose of regarding relationship as a mirror is to reverse our usual oppositional mindset of focusing exclusively on what our partner is doing, while ignoring how we are both co-creating the situation. As an example of how mirroring can work, consider the situation of a talented young doctor who complained that his wife did not appreciate or support him. No matter how much he tried to win her favour, she would never praise him. Yet, why did he have such a need for her praise? What was this mirroring in him? When he explored this, he realised that he felt like a child rather than a powerful man in her company. Instead of taking care of himself, he expected her to make him feel okay. Seeing what he was doing allowed him to shift gears to assert and appreciate himself more in the relationship instead of seeking her approval. When he did this, she suddenly started to express her admiration and appreciation for the first time. She had not deliberately made this change. It was her spontaneous response to a different quality of energy happening between them as the result of his work on himself. Another example, a woman who always wound up with an alcoholic man would struggle with little success to reform them by trying to give them faith in themselves. Her preoccupation with their problems kept her from paying attention to what this unsatisfactory situation pointed in herself. She too lacked self-esteem. The motivation behind her crusade to rescue the men was her own need to feel worthwhile. When she began to address this lack of confidence in herself, she no longer needed this to save alcoholic men. Marrying happens not only between intimate partners, but in any relationship where two people are working closely. For example, in my early days as a psychotherapist, when clients resisted change, I would try out different strategies to overcome their resistance, which invariably led me nowhere. When I instead used clients' resistance as a mirror, I saw that I was resisting their resistance. This led to a curious but extremely helpful discovery. Often the most useful thing to do in such a situation was to work on my own resistance and give clients more space to go through whatever they needed to. Then they had less need to resist me or the work. One woman I worked with often complained that men are not emotionally available. Maybe this is true, maybe not. But a story about men put her in conflict with them from the start. When she went on a date, she would immediately try to get the man to be more open to her, which only made him want to pull her away instead. How could she use mirroring to help clarify the situation? I held the mirror up to her by asking, the main problem you see in relationships is men's emotionally unavailability. Is there any part of you that is unavailable? Since my suggestion threatened her righteous position, she refused to consider this at first, firmly replying, no. So I asked her, not even a little bit? Not even 1% of you? As she looked at this further, she began to discover ways in which she was indeed keeping herself distance. She had a deep, unacknowledged rage against men, as well as a fear of being mistreated by them. This led her to isolate certain parts of herself from a relationship in order to feel safe, choosing unavailable men, allowing her to focus on their problems instead of having to face her own unavailability. I also asked the man she was seeing to consider his complaint about her as a mirror. The main problem you see in this relationship is that she is run by her feelings. Is there any way in which your feelings run you? At first he rejected this invitation to look at himself like this, because it threatened his story about himself as cool, calm and collected. Eventually he came to see that he avoided discussing feelings because he was afraid of where that might lead. His partner's greater facility in this area also intimidated him, so in refusing to talk about his feelings with her, he too was run by his feelings of fear. When he looked at the mirror, instead of blaming his partner, he had a path and somewhere to go. He needed to look at what he was so afraid of and how he let his fear control him. Recognizing that they each had the very problems that they were blaming their partner for lessened this couple's opposition, provided some common ground for working with their differences, resulting in a greater spirit of friendliness. And it pointed to areas in themselves that needed attention if their relationship was to keep growing. So whenever we feel stuck or confused about a particular relationship or about relationships as a whole, we can often find a way forward by treating the problem as a mirror of some unfinished business inside us that had not yet clearly seen. Here are some briefer examples that illustrate how relationship problems mirror inner blind spots. For example, 1. A woman is angry with men because they always criticize her and withhold their love. She does not see this as also how she treats herself. She withholds love from herself by allying with her inner critic. She chooses men who are not there for her because this is a familiar situation for her. She is not there for herself. Until she works on this in her relationships will not go very far. Number 2, a man who considers himself impeccable about keeping his word and being reliable finds women untrustworthy. He always winds up with unreliable women because he is attracted to their vivaciousness and spontaneity, qualities that his stern dedication to being steady and reliable has eclipsed in himself. Nevertheless, his attraction to such women is a sign that he is trying to come into a relationship with these exiled qualities. to himself. Instead of engaging in a crusade to make women more reliable, he needs to work on freeing up his own spontaneity. A sweet young man always winds up with aggressive women who hurt him. This situation reflects his need to get in touch with his own aggression, which hides behind his ever-present smile. It is no accident that he regards women as bitchy and pushy. His oversensitivity to these qualities in women reflects his uneasiness about being assertive himself. He fears women's rage because he fears his own denied anger. His attraction to powerful women reflects his need to find his own power. A playful, light-hearted woman, after many years of marriage, is having a hard time accepting her husband's seriousness and intensity. Her partner is not really the problem, however. She has disowned her own darker side, which she has conveniently let him play out all these years. Her present dissatisfaction indicates that letting him express a side of her no longer works for her. She needs to get to know her own darkness. A man who loves to save damsels in distress invariably winds up being left by them after he rescues them from their difficulties. What does this situation reflect? There is a part of himself that needs to be saved, his own inner femininity, his softness and sensitivity, which he denies. Being out of touch with it made him brittle and constricted. So when the women he saves begin to blossom, they do not find their newfound fullness reflected in him and must go elsewhere. Okay, that's it for today. Don't forget to check the links down below. Check the links on my channel. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you know when the next video will be uploaded. Take care. Blessed be.